In another positive note, Eddie Goldman was pictured basically being back. He is training again. He looks to be in basically in game shape and everything else. And
Well,
apparently everyone else, including Danny Trevathan, who also called that he'd be back and he'd be back in for sorry, not OTAs, for training camp. That looks like that's going to be true. Of course, really happy to see that. Important things to note that people were worried about for him for retiring and everything else was that he's got 25 mil guaranteed on his contract. People were worried, oh, maybe he'd retire, maybe all this stuff. That doesn't look to be the case. I know that I read earlier he took like a $96,000 fine or something for missing OTAs that were mandatory. Um, I mean, obviously that's not going to impact you that much when you're making that much money. But then better news, he's back. He's training, and that's going to be a huge reinforcement of the line because a lot of the defense of last year got absolutely ran over due to him not being in the game and then having to pay. Sorry, the name escapes me. Maybe I think it was Nick Williams. I don't remember if he was playing in Eddie Goldman's spot, but he was playing out of position. So
yes.
yeah,
Yeah, so Eddie Goldman, I've always heard that he had a great work ethic, and then he was just a dude who worked his butt off, and that was how he was in college, and that's how he was in the NFL. So I wasn't too worried about that. I was more so worried about him just not showing, like it being one of those, like when people were worried, like, oh, is he going to show up in shape after a year? I wasn't really worried about that because, like I said, I've heard of him having such a great work ethic that I felt like it was going to be fine. Obviously, there's a transition to sitting, being in your home the entire season to then going to full game in NFL and trying to get back to the level that you were as a nose tackle. It's a difficult task, but I felt like he was up to that as far as keeping himself in shape. My worry was just that he opted out for a year. Could he potentially do it again, or could he potentially just call it a career? Because that happens. So that was my worry.
yeah,
So seeing him in shape coming back is great. Seeing him back into getting into the swing of things is great because what it means to me is that he's 100% going to play this season. Obviously, the question is he going to be the same Eddie Goldman he was before? I think he's going to be very, very close, if not the same, just
Really,
because
you want me?
there's two ways it could go. Getting a year off could take a guy out of the game, and he's not going to be as electric as he was. Le'Veon Bell esque. Um, and you can make arguments that Le'Veon Bell wasn't used correctly, but he wasn't the same.
yeah,
You could say that about players that sit out. Same with Eddie Goldman here. You could say maybe he comes back and he struggles a little bit. You could say maybe that year off is what did it for him. I think that mid-season, if Eddie Goldman's back to normal, that'll be the tell. Because if mid-season, once he gets a couple games under his belt and he's back into game shape, fully, because getting into game shape is different than being in shape, obviously.
right.
Then we'll know. So we'll see how that goes out. I'm really not worried about him being in shape as far as being able to play on the field, because obviously you see with the sled right here, and everything, and just his work ethic from before, he's gonna be there. He's gonna be ready to go. It's just whether or not he's gonna be able to play up to the same stature he was before. So,
Yeah,
and yeah, obviously it allows oh man, what's his name? Bilal Nichols to slide back over to play a three tech defensive end, defensive tackle position, which is what he is better at and which is where he was kind of shining. So hopefully that continues his growth as a defensive tackle. And then obviously it allows Akeem Hicks to not worry too much about the run and exert so much energy on the run. Because literally Akeem Hicks was our run stopper last year. When he wasn't in the game, teams ate us alive. When he was in the game, it was like, oh, Akeem Hicks is there. And it's like, yeah, that's Akeem Hicks is one of the most underrated defensive tackles in the entire league because he does so much for our team. He's the heart of our team. That's why, like, getting rid of Kyle Fuller hurt because I was like, oh, that hurts. Like, Kyle Fuller's a captain. He's a good player. It sucks to lose him. If we lost Akeem Hicks, I would have lost hope because I would have been like, no, that's our heart of our defense. Like, you rip your heart out. That's what happens. So,
yeah,
Akeem Hicks being back with Eddie Goldman being there really takes the pressure off of Akeem Hicks to stop the run and stop the pass. Instead, Akeem Hicks can kind of evenly split his, energy in that direction, and hopefully that keeps him healthier over the season. But yeah, it's so I'm excited to have him back, and I'm looking forward to what impact he can have This defense that desperately needs run stopping.
Yeah. No, it'll be interesting to see. That when you were talking about Hakeem Hicks, I was thinking about the Raiders game and how the team just looked like totally like they just got kicked in the
Yep.
mouth ever since he went out. Completely different team, but
Just
yeah,
look at Dalvin Cook just eat us alive in that game against the Vikings when Hakeem Hicks wasn't in there. And then you look at the Packers game where Hakeem Hicks was in there, and Aaron Jones had, every time he ran anywhere near Hakeem Hicks, he had trouble.
yeah,
And that's the difference. So now you throw in Eddie Goldman and you have a whole different story.